Hey everyone, welcome back to the Physique Development Podcast. Today we're actually talking about something that comes around every single year around this time. The moment when you realize that it's bathing suit season is right around the corner, but you're not where you wanted to be physically, and the panic sets in. So you might even be asking yourself, is it even worth to start now? Did I miss my shot to feel confident this summer? And the honest answer is you are right on the edge. This is the last real window to make intentional changes and noticeable results, especially if you're aiming to drop about 10 to 15 pounds before summer. So this episode is for anyone who feels like they're cutting it close, because you truthfully are, but you still have time, especially if you start now and you stay consistent. So we're going to walk you through exactly what we would focus on, how to get results without burning out or going through a crash diet, and how to shift your mindset so that this doesn't feel like just another crash diet. So let's go ahead and get started. Well, I guess one more thing before we get started. If you're listening to this and thinking, okay, but where do I start? That is truthfully what we help our clients with. So our clients don't come to us with everything figured out. They come to us when they are tired of guessing. So if you're craving structure and clarity, then you're not behind, you're ready, and we would love to be able to help you out. And we'll have a link down below if you have any questions to be able to get on a free call and talk through how we can help you. So let's go ahead and dive in. Like I said, you're not too late, but the window is closing. And this is the final stretch because we're here in April. So we have the rest of April and May before we get into those June, July, summer months here. So if you want to feel better in your body and drop those 10 to 15 pounds and actually enjoy the summer without constantly thinking about how your clothes will fit or avoiding the pool altogether, this is the time to take action. So Alex, what would you say is possible in the next 8 to 10 weeks for people to be able to accomplish?
If they take what we're going to walk them through, I think a lot. I think you can improve your energy. I think you can improve your digestion for sure, which is going to bring down inflammation alongside of it. Maybe even build a little bit of muscle, but certainly lose some body fat and just overall feel more confident.
Definitely can feel more toned and really just feel proud of how you're showing up for yourself, because I think that has a lot to go into it when we're thinking about not feeling good going into the summer. Obviously, part of it is how we feel in our body, but that's also going to come from, are we keeping the promises that we make to ourselves? Because that mentality can then translate to how we feel in our body on a day-to-day basis.
Sure, absolutely.
Now, within your clients, is this something that if they were trying to diet for summer, that you would start them around this time, or what would a timeline generally look like for you?
This would be the last moment, I suppose. Anyone that I've been working with since the beginning of the year or through January and February that have vacations coming up, they've already started this process and have made some really great headway, but this would be kind of the final push. So if someone was to come to me at this time, the things that we're going to talk about today would be the starting point for us, and then being able to get into the more specifics for the person would be the thing that we would be focusing on.
And so now, because this is like the final push, does that mean that they should make a bunch of drastic changes, drop their calories to be able to get the best results in the next few weeks?
Depends on how much progress you need to make, how well you think you can adhere. All of those things are going to go into consideration when deciding how aggressive the diet needs to be, because the diet is going to likely be as aggressive as you can adhere to, as well as be able to maintain a lot of the other factors that we often talk about from a hormonal perspective, as well as sleep and being able to train hard enough and those things. So it's possible.
So if you were starting a client with things right now, what are some things that you would prioritize if they were like, hey, I want to feel confident in a bathing suit by summer?
Where are they starting at? Like, how are they coming to us in their state? Because depending on where they're currently at is going to decide on what we focus on. Because if we have someone who comes to us who is not tracking their food at the moment and they're working out, but just kind of like going through the motions when they get in there, well, that person is going to get into some structured meal timing. They're going to get into tracking their macros. They're going to have more specific training in place. And by having the structure, they're going to see a lot of progress very, very quickly because of where they're starting from. If the person is coming to us and they've been trying to diet and they are at a lower calorie intake and they are doing their best in the gym, they're getting cardio in and they're just not seeing the scale move. Well, the approach for that particular person is going to look different because we've got to get to the root cause of why they're not seeing results. And so then we would spend time getting to that root cause. Is there something going on from a hormonal standpoint? Is there something going on from a tracking perspective that they're not doing what they think they're doing? Are there factors within sleep that could be improved? Is there things within digestion that could be improved to set them up for greater overall success? And so depending on the current state is how I would get them started.
Let's go ahead and take the example of someone who hasn't been tracking as much. They've still been training, but maybe they say they've been loosely tracking or they've tracked in the past. They're training. What would be the steps forward then for them? Or what would you do to be able to get them to that point?
So the first thing would be clarifying exactly what they're wanting to accomplish. And assessing for them, have they gotten to that place that they're speaking to of weight loss? And when was that time? And kind of getting into the trenches of what that experience was, how long ago that time was, to get an idea of where their mentality is at so that you can either potentially unveil some of the deeper things that are going on for them so that you can address those and speak to any of the maybe misconceptions that they have around nutrition or training and educate in a way that is helpful for them long term. Because no matter what, for our coaching is being able to educate past the time of them working with us, being able to manage your nutrition and your training and your body composition and not have to religiously diet before you go into the vacation that's coming up so that you can just maintain in good body composition. And so getting to that clarity of exactly what they're wanting to see and expressing to them the realistic nature of accomplishing what they want to do. Because if they're coming in here and saying, I want to lose 20 pounds in 8 weeks, very unlikely. Is it possible? Yes. I'm someone who, we've talked about this a lot on the podcast, rose-colored glasses. I'm going to say everything has at least a 0.001% possibility. It's not the highest probability for sure to do it in that time frame. Can you lose 10 pounds in 8 weeks? That is a higher probability, still difficult, not going to be a walk in the park. And if you're trying to make considerable strides in an 8 to 10 week window, the realistic, honest answer here is that you're going to have to be pretty rigid. There's not going to be a ton of flexibility to get considerable results in that short period of time. And so having this flexibility of being able to go out to dinners and it be something that you're not tracking and you're just being more intuitive, having alcohol, having higher calorie foods, and just getting back on it the next day. Yes, that is fine and dandy in the grand scheme of if we're going to diet for 16 weeks or 20 weeks. But if we're in this very finite window and we have a very specific goal, we've got to be very specific with how we're going about it. And so once we get clarity on the goal, let's say that it's 15 pounds for 8 weeks. So it's 64 total days. For 15 pounds, we're going to have to see 1/4 pound of fat loss every single day. Now that's averaged out over the week's time in the 8 weeks, but that's the reality of it. And so I like to put that lens on the client and say, this is what we're striving for. How does this feel? Like, do you feel the weight and the challenge of what that is? And if I can tell the answer is yes, okay, we're making progress. But if I can see in our conversation that that is not registering in terms of weight, they're like, yeah, no big deal. No big deal. It's like, okay, I've got to continue on this conversation because they need to have an understanding of the weight so that they are making decisions in light of what they want to accomplish. If they're making decisions when they're just kind of like lackadaisically taking on this goal, it's not going to come to fruition. And so then now we have a situation where they haven't got their goal. I haven't accomplished my goal of helping the person get to that place. So now we're both frustrated. And that could be fixed with this initial communication and continuing to talk on those things every single week. Because communication, when we're striving for goals like this, is tremendously important in keeping it at the forefront of their mind of, hey, this is where we're at in the progress. We're ahead, we're on target, we're behind, and having those reinforcements along the way. The initial question here was, how was I going to start these clients out? And I got off on a side tangent. This happens. So if they are tracking somewhat, they're working out kinda, So we're going to get into more specifics there. And I think if they've been tracking kinda, at that point, we're going to have a really strong focus on meal timing, because often when people are kinda tracking, they're likely going extended periods without full meals, and then they're incorporating snacks that are not going tracked. They're just like, this is going to hold me over until I get to my actual meal, that I'm going to track that meal. And so we're going to eliminate the snacks and move to full meals and have consistent meal timing throughout that, really making an emphasis on what that final meal of the day is going to be and the timing of that, so that we're having that in adequate time for us to get the best sleep. Because if you can master that final meal of the night, and you're not going upstairs, eating a snack as you're going to bed to just about to brush your teeth and all that, if you can avoid that, you're going to have more consistent weigh-ins in the morning. That's one tidbit that often jumps out at clients. The other thing is that you're going to have tremendously better sleep, which is far more important than the accuracy of the scale reading in the morning. But the accuracy of the scale reading is more valuable to a lot of people, because we've all experienced this when we get on that scale and we're expecting something else and it comes up that it's a higher number. Well, that doesn't feel good for anybody. And so if we have something in our control, like managing that final meal and going to bed on time, getting quality sleep, setting up our environment, well, we should optimize for that. And especially in this short period of time, that's one thing that's very in our control. Not for everybody. It's not, perfectly in control with having children and those different factors, but as much as you can control that, I would encourage it. So sleep and meal timing would probably be focus 1 and 2. And then from there, it's probably something where we're looking at daily activity and how consistently are we getting steps in? Are we seeing that steps are 2, 3, 4, maybe 5,000 throughout the week? Well, we can bring that up. And I often will start with just increasing steps by 2,000 from where the average baseline is when the person comes to us. And I think that that's a nice step up, because if you go, let's say even 3,000 or 4,000 on average of an increase, that's going to be pretty much quite a bit of wear and tear on your legs. Mm-hmm. Especially if the person is wanting to prioritize lower body training or glute training specifically. Increasing steps by 3,000 or 4,000 plus probably improving the intensity, exercise selection, and challenge of the training simultaneously is going to be quite a bit on the lower body. And so steps would be the next thing. And then getting into the training and seeing what that looks like. Are we seeing progress there? How are we, where are we at within the rep range? How are we in terms of time? Where are we at within the intensity, and making the assessments on that to get them into a better training stimulus for them at that time?
I think it's really alluring of people thinking of a shorter diet, being like, oh, I get to be in and out and then be able to get my results quicker. But what people often don't conceptualize or connect is that if you are going to have a shorter diet and get in and out, you have to really be in. You do lose some of that flexibility, where it doesn't mean you can't diet without flexibility, but you have to adjust the timeline for that. Low reps is best.
High reps is best.
Fruit is so
it's
good.
Terrible for you.
You should lift heavy.
High reps,
carbs
low
are
weight.
needed.
Keto
Squats
for
are bad for your
Squats
knees.
are great.
You
for your
should squat ass to
knees over
grass.
toes.
It's fine. It fits my macros.
Is for idiots.
When there are so many mixed messages going around, it's hard to know what you should even do or focus on. But that's exactly where Physique Development one-on-one coaching comes in. You might have heard of online coaching or even hired a coach before, but we believe in teaching you the why behind what we do, while truly taking your life into consideration. We want to train, educate, and empower you to reach your goals and help you to stop spinning your wheels and just finally feel good. And hey, we're here to help you look good too. You need you. Your health is your wealth. So join Physique Development and let us be the last coach you ever need. The other thing that I think was so important that you talked about was you didn't say immediately lower food. And that is a mistake I see time and time again of people who aren't tracking regularly go into, well, I should generally be around this, without even plugging in a few days to get an average and being able to make an input. And that can be really difficult of, okay, I am increasing steps. I'm increasing my intensity in training. I'm lowering food. I haven't nailed down my recovery yet. And then again, that scale reading, like you you talked about can kind of be wonky. You are like, I'm not seeing results. I need to lower food again. And that's where people kind of get into this aspect of under eating and like under recovering, and then wondering, I'm doing all of this right. Why am I not seeing results? And I think that it's so important that you not only said it first depends where someone's coming to us, because obviously it does, but also being able to recognize that a shorter diet means less flexibility, and you do have to find out where your starting point is before you can move forward.
Well, I would say that the foundation of how you're going about your day is going to be far more important than lowering or increasing food in this situation. Like, we'll get to the lowering of the food, but if we can't just have the structure that we're going to need over the next 8 weeks of day-to-day habits and things that are going to, now the food is obviously going to be a massive driver, but the things that I had laid out are in part to that as well, and just as important in the grand scheme of things. And so with that being the case, once that foundation is in place, then getting the food adjusted becomes far easier. If I have you sleeping well, if I have your meals structured out from a timing standpoint in a good way, I have you training hard, I have you getting your steps in, which is going to help your digestion, but have a consistent output of calories on a day-to-day basis, the adjustments to nutrition become far easier relative to the person who's coming to us who's not really tracked accurately, and then they want to get into a deficit. So we're making a guess off of where they maybe have been, of what they feel comfortable to report. And oftentimes what they feel comfortable to report is not what they've actually been doing. It's every bit of 300 to 500 calories less, if not more than that number, because you're not taking into account snacks. There's so many things, whether it's either embarrassment because they're like, oh my gosh, I've been eating like this. I'll remove this, and this is not that big a deal. Here's what I've got.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not how we should do that. You should just allow yourself to be fully embarrassed in that situation if you're feeling that way, because it's going to get you a much greater overall response. Because what ends up happening in that situation is that the person adjusts to give them comfort in sending that over to what the calories were. And let's say that it's 500 calories less. Well, let's say that I take 300 calories off of what you sent me, because I think that that's where we should start the deficit. Okay, now you're 800 calories less than what you were eating roughly on a day-to-day basis prior to that. And you are having the hardest time getting into this deficit, and you don't know why. It's like, well, because you were eating 800 calories more than this on a regular basis, and you decided, you know what, today is the day where I don't do that. And you think that it's the right thing, but in reality, if you would have sent the right information to begin with, we could have actually started in the right place. But that didn't happen.
And I think it's like, I get the aspect of being either embarrassed or trying to show a certain way. But what we always try to really talk to clients or incoming clients is like, we can't make decisions off of inaccurate data, or they are going to be inaccurate decisions. They're not going to match what you actually want. And if you're listening to this and you're like, there's so many different aspects and I don't know what I need to do, I don't know how it's going to fit my body or my schedule or my goal, like that again is where coaching can come in, and being able to look at all of these aspects we're talking about and being able to set you up with a plan, because we've been the experts in this for over a decade. And so now we're able to apply that to your life and build something realistic to get you those results without being in that spot, like I talked about, of constantly taking food away and not understanding why you're not seeing those results.
Are you sick and tired of your glutes not growing? Turning around in the mirror and seeing a board for a booty? I've been coaching for nearly a decade, helping thousands of women reach their goals. The most common goal? Grow my glutes. Women in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and even 60s able to grow their glutes with the guidance of my training programs. And for all this time, I've kept my best glute growth secrets only for my one-on-one clients. And that changes today. We just released our 12-week glute growth program in the PD training app. It is a 4-day program with exercise and volume adjustments every 3 weeks. You can easily access the program through our app and track every single workout. Each exercise will have a detailed video teaching you exactly how to perform each and every movement. And guess what? I am no longer gatekeeping. I'm sharing every single one of my best glute growth secrets inside this program because you are awesome and I want you to have this program. I'm going to give you $25 off, making it a fraction of what you spent at Starbucks this past month. Use code POD. The link to purchase will be in the description. Now let's get back to the show.
So let's flip over to the other type of person you talked about, of someone who's been dieting and been trying to see those results, and they come to us and wanting to continue dieting. What do you do in a situation like that?
So this is going to be a little bit more intricate overall. The first thing is going to be looking at a visual representation, photos, being able to see, is this person extremely inflamed? Do we have a greater localization of body fat to specific areas of the body that would potentially be indicative that we've got something going on from a cortisol or estrogen dominant standpoint? These are not going to be one-for-one exchanges, but they're going to add up to possibilities in tandem with other symptoms that we often would see clients experiencing. And so by taking some of these things, it leads us to what is the best testing that we should venture into, or what could this person be navigating through that could be the bottleneck here. And so looking at the visual representation, going through a detailed analysis of what's going on for them within symptoms for their digestion, for their energy, the regulation of their menstrual cycle, like all of these different things, getting into the weeds a little bit more to better understand what's going on internally, because we've got to get under the hood to see what is causing the lack of progress. Now, you may be listening to this and saying, why is the first step not figuring out if the person's accurately tracking their food? Because when someone, and anyone who's going through this, where they're trying very hard to lose body fat, they're tracking their food, they're doing everything they think they should be doing and not seeing the result. If your first response to that person is, let's see if you're lying to me. Let's see if you're really doing what you're saying you're doing. It's not going to be greeted with open arms. Like, that person is not going to be in a receptive position to what you have to say more often than not. And it's going to be important that you recognize what the person is saying, take them at their word. And if you go through all of the extensive work that's beyond them just tracking their food properly, getting their steps in, doing those basic things, you go through all of that and everything looks clean. Well, now it's evident to the client, and it's also evident to myself, that something was wrong in the basics here. We've got to really address the basics. But I can tell you, having done this hundreds, if not thousands of times, having this exact conversation that I'm speaking to, going into that conversation, calling the person a liar, not a good start. No matter how you dress it, it's not going to be received well. And so that is the avenue that I have come to find to be the absolute best, and find a common ground of conversation to get to the bottom of why the results are not being had. And so we go through those different factors. If we're able to identify what that is, then we address that and align the training and the nutrition and the activity and the sleep. All those things are aligned with what needs to be addressed and what was found in the under the hood testing. And then from there, we get into a realistic nature of, can we lose the body fat that you're wanting to prior to this trip, for example? Or do we need to focus on, you're going to feel a whole hell of a lot better. You're going to see inflammation come off of your body, but it's not really an opportunity for us to lose this body fat. But I'd like for you to go into the trip feeling way better than you do right now. I don't want you to go into this trip feeling the way that you do right now and still like, what in the world is happening to me? Like, we have answers, but it's going to take us more time to address this and then also see fat loss. Because if you're addressing anything from an internal standpoint, seeing fat loss alongside of it is going to be very rare. Is it possible? Again,
Always possible.
It has a small chance, but is unlikely. And so that's something that I would drive home to that person.
And I think it's helpful to be able to look at it of like, yes, they might not be losing body fat during that time, but like you said, not only will they be feeling better, but a lot of times they do end up looking better because we are able to get their body functioning at a better level. So I've had a client personally who was really wanting to diet for a trip, and she was not in the position to diet. and we were able to lose weight on the scale. She didn't really lose body fat. She lost inflammation, and she was able to get her digestion in a better spot. And she felt so confident and comfortable going on that trip where she thought, I just need to lose more weight or I need to lose fat. But we were able to look at it from, hey, overall, we actually need to get your body functioning. And she was able to feel so comfortable going on that trip without actual fat loss coming into play.
Yes. I mean, there's just so many people that normalize horrible digestion, normalize horrible hormonal function just because it's been like that for them for as long as they can remember. And it is so gratifying to be able to enlighten that person that it doesn't have to be that way and show them that they can feel different, that they can feel better. And these situations often bring them up because if they're experiencing a lot of resistance towards the goal that they have, it may be something that's internal that needs to be addressed. And then that's kind of the opportunity that presents.
I do find that that's one of the hardest parts is because we have people self-report, not that they're liars, but that they have normalized how they felt for so long that they don't even know that I can feel different. They don't even know that they're covering something up. They've just normalized, this is how I felt for so long. So yeah, my digestion feels normal because this is normal for me. Or my menstrual cycle feels normal because this is what it normally is if I'm just in a lot of pain during it. And that's where you're able to dig into it a little bit more as a coach of not saying, hey, I think you're lying, but being able to ask more questions to fully understand what is going on. I think a lot of coaches, and even like if someone's self-coaching themselves, don't really stop to ask questions. And that's one of the most valuable things that you can do is to be able to truly learn about the person, learn about what's going on, and be able to get more enlightened about like, hey, what does feel normal for you? What is this at? So we can really dive into that. I can understand you better to, again, make better and better decisions with the more information that I have, the more data that I have on being able to decide any of this.
Yes. I think within the questions and the conversation and being able to dig deeper, we work with majority women, and women are painfully resilient. And then you add motherhood on top of just being a woman in general, it adds another level to the resiliency that I'm not sure anyone is able to touch besides those individuals. And so then you take that resiliency and then you put them in a place where they're often not prioritizing themselves in front of anyone else. So everyone comes before them. So they're having this resiliency as well as dismissing any of the concerns that they have for them or things that are not going well within their health. It's a pretty tough place to be self-reporting because they're going to just normalize so much that you've got to be able to find the right questions to really better understand exactly what it is. Because if you have a client who is a mother who has been going through some challenging times, they may put their stress as a 3 out of 10, meaning that it's very low for what's been normalized to them, that if I was to be placed into their spot, my body would feel probably on fire and I would be rating it a 12 out of 10, And so if you're in a place where you are not seeing the results that you want and some of these things may be normalized for you, it may be an opportunity for you to seek help from our experts within our coaching specifically that will give you answers. And even if it's not from a place of I'm going to 100% sign up for one-on-one coaching, we want to help, even if it's just putting you in the right direction so that you have a better understanding of where you need to go. We want to help in that situation because I am so tired of seeing so many people just frustrated and beating themselves up about something that if they had the better knowledge and guidance, it could be fixed. Mm-hmm. That is the thing that I want to improve drastically. And that's what we do here with the podcast. That's what we try to do within the YouTube channel, all of our short form content. Everything is in place to help those individuals. And this podcast is specific to that. But please ask questions because there is such a level of individual nature to these things that everything needs to be taken into account. And then what is the greatest priority? What's going to move the needle the most of those things and choosing that to get the result desired. Because you may be associating with some of the things you see on social media of I'm having this symptom and I'm having this symptom, and it may be the lowest on that totem pole, and you're addressing them being like, why is there not any greater progress? Like, this person said they had life-changing results because of this. And all I'm seeing is like, I'm able to pick myself up out of bed, not just drag. That's the only difference. Like, well, it wasn't very high on your priority list. There was things that were more important for us to address. And so that's where just the questions, individual nature comes in.
I think specifically with this being talking about like summer and being bikini ready, it is worth mentioning of that doesn't have to be with weight loss, but we're specifically talking to the people who are wanting to lose weight going into summer. And the big thing within like being bikini ready, I'm not telling you have to be a certain weight to be bikini ready, but it's just feeling good in your body. I know as a woman myself that putting on a bikini or a bathing suit, like that is a very like exposing experience, so to speak, of you are showing so much of your body, and that can be very difficult, and it can feel just mentally hard to do so, especially if you don't feel confident in how you look or how you feel in your body. And so I think that's, again, something to come back to is like, how do you want to feel on a day-to-day basis? Don't feel pressured of now it's summer, now I have to lose weight, but how do you feel when you look in the mirror? How do you feel when you get dressed each day? And what is important for you in that to be able to go forward with it. So for some people, that might be losing 10 to 15 pounds in the next 8 to 10 weeks. But for other people, that might be just keeping promises that they made to themselves and showing up for themselves a little bit better.
Yeah. I mean, the question was originally framed of 10 to 15 pounds. And so that was why I went into the tangents that I did. But there's certainly going to be a situation where it may just be a matter of feeling more confident, and what does that really look like for you? I know that like the reason that I went the direction that I did is that I didn't want anyone to have this false sense that if they hit 70% of their food or did 70% of what they were supposed to do, that they were going to see substantial progress in such a short amount of time. Now, can we take a more that approach of hitting things 70% of the time over, let's say 16 or 20 weeks over a longer time horizon? Yeah. I mean, it depends on where the person's starting at, but it certainly can be. But in that short period of time, to get the results that you want, you've got to be pretty on point.
I love that you brought it up because oftentimes people just want to hear what they want to hear. And I think it's honestly our job as coaches to be realistic of, hey, for this to happen, this is what it looks like. And also if we're looking over this next 8 to 10 weeks, what's going on in your life? Are you going to be like, well, Easter's coming up, so I have a big celebration for that. Family's going to be in town, so really that whole week is going to be a wash. Oh, also it's Cinco de Mayo and I have a big celebration planned, and I also have a trip planned during that time, but I'm thinking that I'm going to be able to diet over that time frame and be ready to go by June. Like that's where you need to be able to have honest conversation with yourself, and a coach needs to be able to be honest with you about what is realistic. Because I think one of the things that we do really well at Physique Development is being able to give clients realistic timelines of how much can you expect to happen in this time if the type of effort you're giving is the effort that you're giving or the effort you're willing to give. What does that look like? So that it's not thinking, oh, I can lose 30 pounds in 20 weeks. And it's like, again, is that possible? Yes. But are you in a place to diet right now? When are we starting the diet? What things do you have coming up in life? Like those are all very important things to look at instead of just saying like, yeah, it's possible, so it's going to happen. It's only going to happen if you've locked down what that exact plan is going to be to get to that goal.
One of the things I'll put into client onboardings as I'm going through their protocols, one thing we do at Physique Development is that when a new client starts, they will receive a video going through everything in tremendous detail within their training, their nutrition, their cardio, their supplementation, literally everything. It is a very detailed video so that we're starting on the exact same page and able to hit the ground running the Monday often that they're getting started the following week. And in that video, if we're getting into a dieting phase, what I'll do is I'll pull out the calendar and I will show them, okay, this is how long I'm expecting you to be dieting over the next 10 to 12 weeks. This is the start date and this is the end date. look at your calendar and see what's going on in that time of family events or things that we can be better prepared for. Because the worst thing is that people will get into the dieting phase and then, oh, I have a ski trip coming up. Okay, well, for the ski trip, I'm not wanting to track it all. Well, it would have been good to know that going into it, because we probably could have been a little bit more aggressive going into that trip to have an expedited result so that you could have that time and stay on the trajectory that I had planned, thinking that the whole time frame was that we were going to be on point with this in place. So having those things, now obviously things pop up, things happen. I get all of that. That's not what I'm speaking about. I'm speaking about things that you have in your control that you know are coming up that we can plan accordingly to so that you can still get your result and still enjoy those things. Now, for you to enjoy those things and still get the result may be some extreme measures going into that time frame. That's just the reality. And I like to be able to provide that to the client of, this is the extreme that we may have to go to during this period to stay in alignment with what you want to do. Is that something that you're comfortable with? If not, cool. Just understand that now our timeline has changed a little bit so that you have proper expectations for the input that you're putting in. Because the last thing you want from a coaching relationship is that the client is in a position where they're putting in all the effort and their expectation is out of alignment with that, of what they're going to be getting out. And so part of my job is to keep expectation as well as effort in alignment at all times. And so being very transparent of options as well as how each option is going to impact the greater goal is something I have to do on a very regular basis so that we don't ever have any misalignment. Because as soon as that misalignment happens, now we're frustrated and trying to do extra stuff when we shouldn't be. Or we're frustrated and who cares anymore? I'm out of this. It doesn't matter anymore. I'm not checking in, blah, 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 blah. And so it's communication is king in all things, but especially in a situation where you're being coached online, communication is paramount, and transparent communication at that.
Yeah, it only helps the client and helps you as a coach to be able to have that in place, because you might make an assumption of like, oh, they said they want to reach this goal. They have these things going on. They know like it's going to be a push for it, or like to get to this point, this is going on. But if you haven't specifically vocalized that to them, then again, there's that misalignment, and it's always going to come back to that frustration, butting heads, and not getting the result, which is what people come to you for, is to be able to get results. So this is something that if you're listening to this episode, and especially if you're like, oh, those type of people they talked about of, I'm someone who's been trying to diet and haven't been able to see results, or I haven't really been tracking and I'm trying to diet going into summer. And after you've heard all of this, you're like, oh, wait, I might not know exactly what to do and what those next steps are. If you want a plan that is actually built for you and a coach who's with you every step of the way, we'll have a link down in the show notes, and we'll get on a free call, be able to talk about what the game plan is for you, and be able to get you in that spot for summer.
I hope I didn't scare any of you off. Transparency and honesty is how I go about things.
We're very much about that here.
I hope I didn't scare any of you off. I hope to hear from you all. And thank you guys for tuning in today.
We'll catch you in the next one.